G'day mate, and welcome back to Capital Industry with me, Jetty. Today's video is going to be a continuation in our series of upgradable smelters designs. Because, don't get me wrong, I love the fact in Capital Industry that as we proceed through the technology, as we get new things, we have to upgrade our existing facilities. But one of the things that really frustrated me was smelters themselves. In theory, I should be able to build a smelter design that I can just upgrade over and over, and that's exactly what we've been doing. We've already done an iron video on how to upgrade your iron smelter from very early stage, same as this, where we have no belts, no nothing. It is trucks doing all the deliveries all the way up to the very final stages, being an Arc Furnace MK2, all in situ. We've also done the steel version as well. Today we're going to be doing copper. In future, we'll be doing glass. So, with that out of the way, I'm going to ask a couple of things. First thing I'm going to ask you guys is, can I borrow a like? I just like to borrow a like. I'll remind you later on in the video, if you weren't happy with the video, you didn't find it informative, you didn't find it helpful, by all means, you can have your like back. At the same time, I am going to remind you, if you want to see the iron built video or the steel video that I mentioned earlier, you will find them pinned in the comments below. There'll be a link to the playlist. Have a check of that. They'll be in that playlist. The thing I do want to mention is, if you need to come back and watch this again in the future, there is a bunch of chapters down the bottom which will let you jump forward and backward and skip through time to get to the particular upgrade you're trying to do. So with that out of the way, I think we should start with a clean slate. I think a clean slate is the best way to start, so we're just going to delete everything there, have the trucks pick everything up. I'm going to start from scratch. So copper smelting. Copper smelting is a little bit different from the previous smelters. We are going to need a blast furnace, we're going to need a metal caster, and being that it's copper, we're going to need a copper electrolysis machine. So that's going to be the three machines we need to use, and I want to grab the blast furnace first. At the same time, I'm going to be intentionally building inside this grid section, and I'm doing that for a number of reasons. One, for, well, those people who like to count tiles. Those people who like to count tiles, they want to know exactly where to place things. We have a nice grid box to work off. On top of that, because I am definitely one of the people that does not like counting tiles, I'm going to intentionally reference everything off the very first smelter. So it works for both parties. With that said, we're going to put our very first smelter one tile in from the edge and also one tile up from the bottom. And the very important thing is I want to have slag on the left-hand side. I want to have it on the outside of the little box. And if I rotate the machine around, it's not going to help me. But if I press the F button, it'll flip it. And if I flip it, it'll put the slag on the outside. Very important. Then we want to put another one, and I want to put it one tile away, again with the slag on the outside. I want to have the slag on the outside, I want to have the two exhausts in the middle. It's going to be important in the future. Next up, we need the metal caster. Metal caster, we're going to line it up with our very first smelter. We're going to come down 1, 2, 3 tiles. It's also lined up the left-hand side of the machine, and we're going to drop that right there. Because you process 12 molten copper, and you would potentially, if I set the right recipe, make 24, copy paste. Cool. I'm going to need 2 metal casters, so we're going to put a second metal caster right beside the first metal caster. We also need the exact same for the other system, so I'm going to grab both these. I'm going to slide them, well, first off, I'm going to press F to flip them, because I want them a mirror image of the ones that we're copying from. I also need to move them over 1, 2, 3 tiles. That's going to be important. Next thing is we need to talk about the copper electrolysis machine. So copper electrolysis machine, because it has copper on both corners, trying to talk about its orientation is very difficult. The long and the short of it is I want to come down to, well, I want to come lined up with the machine, the metal caster before it. I want to come down 2 tiles, and then I want to go towards the center 1 tile. On top of that, I want to have the acid on the bottom, and I want to have the nice copper, the pretty copper, the wash copper on the inside of the build. So we need to get it into this orientation. Yep, even I wasn't sure for a second. With that done, we need a friend right beside it, which we're just going to F to get a mirror orientation, and that is our build. Now, I do need a few basic connections to get these up and running. First off, we're going to need a smokestack for both of the smelters to get rid of the exhaust. On top of that, they're going to need to bring out the molten liquid, because trucks can't transport it. We need to bring the molten liquid out of the one closest to the smokestack. We're going to come all the way forward, run into the machine, and then we're going to come around the back side and plug into the first machine. After we plug in the first machine, I'm going to click that again at that connection to the first machine and plug in the second machine, and then I need to do the exact same on the other side. So again, closest to the smokestack, click and click. All right, with that done, that is going to be... Oh, no, there's one more thing. The copper electrolysis machines. They are going to require delivery of water. Obviously, we're early game, so you don't have access to the recipe, the acid recipe yet, so I need to bring in water in these guys. Transport-wise, we're going to grab a pipe. I'm going to bring this up one tile, and I want to bring it hard in against the top of these copper electrolysis machines. Then I'm going to bring it down and stop it one tile past the end of the machines, like I was going to reach around to the pipe, but I don't want to reach around to the pipe yet. I want to click and confirm that pipe there. Once that's done, then I'm going to bring it down by pressing the Q and E buttons to change the height, bring it down and stop it right in front of the machine. That's going to be or right in front of the connection. I want to click there to confirm it and then plug it into the machine. We need to make sure that this angle of these two pipes is at this lower angle, because we're going to want to use them in the not too distant future. In my case, I actually built on top of groundwater, so I'm just going to plug in a groundwater pump rather, to get in the water, and that is going to be how we're going to be getting in our water. As for the rest of the build, we're just going to build it. Because we're super early game, we're going to need the trucks to do all the deliveries. So I'm going to set the nice set a high priority on both of those. Also a high priority on both of those, because I'm on a very big island with trucks that insist on listening to the speed limits, so they don't get things done nearly as fast as I want them to. But we're going to need to bring in our copper ore and our coal via truck. Also take our slag and remove it and dump it in the sea. For both these machines, they're going to output their molten copper into our metal casters, which automatically turn on, as I said, both the iron and the copper recipe. It really doesn't matter because trucks can't transport the molten materials, so I'm sure both recipes great. And once the material's been cooled in the metal caster, we need a truck to pick it up again and take it into the copper electrolysis machine. This will bring in our impure copper, and then we'll wash it with water, because that's the only recipe we have access to give us washed copper, proper copper, nice copper. And that's going to be our very, very first start. It is completely relying on trucks, and even though we've put this molten channel behind these machines, you assume that might block the trucks, because the trucks definitely don't have enough room to drive into the inside to access the front of the machine. The good news is it doesn't. Trucks can do what's known as a close approach, providing they can get in within about 3 tiles of a machine. The driver actually gets off his butt, out of the driver's seat, walks over to the machine, picks up the copper, loads it in the back of the truck, and then drives the 10 tiles and drops it off over here. At least that's how I pretend it happens in my head. Realistically, the code just lets the truck access anything within about 3 tiles of itself, which means we don't have them park hard up against the machine. They pull up a little bit short. But this is, as I said, our very first smelter. We are obviously producing copper, not an issue. I need somebody to come over here and grab the copper, which might take a minute, because we do need to have enough in here to actually run this recipe. So I need to have 24 in one of these machines. You have 24. Okay, so you've got 24 already, which means a truck, and you do 2, and you do 3, and you do 4. All right, with that happening, it means a truck has been scheduled to come over here and pick this up, and aha, there we go. And he's going to drive it from there to there, and we are done. We have our very, very first clean copper being produced, which we can then take off, put it into an assembly machine, and make some stuff, so on and so forth. That's our very first build. Now, obviously, as we go through the ages, we're going to get conveyor belts very, very soon. Like copper refinement right here, conveyor belts right here. It's very close. So we need to get these up and running, and that's going to lead us to our second build. Our second build is a mirror copy of our first build. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag my water from the previous build into the new build. Excellent. It's a straight pipe. Goes straight across. All right. Being that we have a brand new build, we need to automate the inputs of both our, well, just our copper, actually. We don't have copper scrap. Automate our inputs of copper ore. So what I need to do is go into the transports tab, and we need a U-shaped belt. Okay, I'm going to come off the back of the machine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiles. Also, you may notice if you're one of those people who works inside the grid line, I'm on the back corner of the dark section of the grid. I'm inside or on the edge of this tile, and we're going to run this right way across. Now, after I've got that one in, we'll call that copper. It could be coal, it could be whatever you want. We're going to call that one copper. My next belt, I need to go up one, so we're going to press the E button, go up a tile. And I'm going to run that across. Now, you may notice the two belts are like attaching to one another, which is not favorable in this particular circumstance. And that is because the belts are magnetic. What we can do is we can turn off their magnetic properties by pressing the R button, and the magnet turns off, at which point I can put this belt over that belt without an issue. So that's going to be our second belt. We'll call that one coal. Lastly, we're going to have a slag belt because we want to automate the export of slag as well. I'm going to go and put this belt not at height. We've already got coal at height 1, so not at height 2. I'm actually going to go all the way up to height 3. I'm going to have a maximum height belt, and I'm going to run that over the top. And the plan is going to be a simple one. We're going to plug in the copper, plug in the copper, plug in the coal, plug in the coal. That's the easy part done. And I'll physically plug in the copper and the coal and watch the truck get stuck. All right, next one is the slag. Now, slag's a little bit different. We're going to bring the slag out the front of the machine. I want to go left one tile, back one tile, and then I want to click. The reason we do that is it makes sure that belt stays at ground level no matter what. Should we want to tie into that belt in the future, it's handy to know that it's always going to be ground level. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to come up to our stack of belts, and we're going to stop right here, and then I'm going to go up to height 3. So I'm going to press the E button until we get up to height 3, and then once I get there, I'm going to click, then go over a tile, and then back into that main slag belt. We'll just build this really quickly so we can see how it works. And the idea is that we end up with this little zigzag at the end. Zigzag's there for a number of reasons. One of them means that if I take this and I copy it and I put another build right beside the first build, we have little zigzags. Okay, little zigzags means I don't end the build with a connector, because you can't put a connector beside a connector because we don't have double adapters in Captain Industry. That's an entirely different game. All right, so with that done, we need to do the same on the other side. We're going to click here. We're going to go back and to, well, the outside one tile. We're going to click. We're going to come up to our belt stack. We're going to go in one tile, go up to height 3, and then connect. With that done, that'll be our slag, that'll be our coal, that'll be our copper. It's not everything yet, but it's most of the way there. Now, obviously, we need to get rid of the slag, which I am just going to put down a bucket, and we'll set you to be built. We'll set you to have slag, and we'll set that to be empty. Okay, helps if I build those belts as well. All right, so that's our inputs covered. We now have copper and coal going into the machines automatically. Slag's going to go out. It's going to get dumped to the sea, and we can now make the impure copper. But I'm not actually making copper yet. We need to continue going through this process and hook belts from these machines to these machines. So the plan is going to be a fairly simple one. We need to go to a flat conveyor now because these are on a flat belt. We're going to come from the bottom machine. We're going to come to the rear of it, hard up against the edge of it, and then we're going to come down and we're going to reach into this little port here. We're going to do the same on the other side. We're going to come to the back of the machine and then around and plug into that port there. And then the higher machines, we're going to plug in the lower machine and higher machine into the lower machine. Okay, that will get our impure copper out of the machines and into the electrolyzers, all with the magic of belts. But we still have the pure copper that I'd really like to take out and put in storage. So what I recommend you do is you grab a copper electrolyzer machine and you just put it up against the edge. You're not building this. This is just for spacing, just to make sure you're going to clear the edge of the machine. All right, with that done, we're going to grab a belt. We're going to come out of one of these two ports, doesn't matter which one, and we're going to go down the center, and we're going to stop right here at the end of the machine. No, I actually need to go over one more tile. Let's do that again. Copy from there, you all the way down here, plus one tile. Okay, with that done, I can then go into storage. We can grab a storage box, which we can plug in right there. And I don't need this anymore, so we can cancel it. And as for the friend on the other side, we're just going to click your output. We're going to join it in the middle. And we're now going to have a belt that passes under that pipe from earlier. With that done, we can build all that. And we should see nice, pretty, shiny copper flowing out the middle and into our storage. So that is our second upgrade. We're now belt compatible, and we haven't had to remove anything. We haven't had to change anything. Everything has just been an additive. All right. From there, continuing down the tech tree, it's a little while. There's a lot of technology you have to research before you unlock two things at once. You're going to unlock recycling, and you're going to unlock copper refinement number 2. Okay, this is going to change our copper smelters from using using this recipe running water and getting out 19.5 copper for the 24 impure you put in, we're now going to put in 24 and get out 24 on the addition we need acid. So we're going to build the exact same build, and we're going to add those two upgrades in. So I'm going to go from there to there. I'm going to break that pipe because we're about to ruin it. Build that and build that with that. Okay, first thing I need to do is I need to take my water that we've been using. I'm going to plug it into the system, because in your case you'd be doing the exact same. We are going to need to get sulfur up and running, and acid up and running. Acid is sulfur plus water equals acid. Nice and simple. So I'm going to get that little build up and running, and it's going to put acid in this pipe, which you may notice we haven't hooked up yet. We'll hook it up shortly. All right, as for the other half of the build, we need to get recyclable material in, which means what I need to do is I need to drag across my copper, what would be copper ore, plus my coal. I also need an export box for slag. Can I put you over there? It's going to be a bit of a longer belt, but cool. All right, and what I want to do is, in my copper ore belt, I'm just going to put in a cut, okay? It needs to be 2 tiles. It's a small modification, and in there, what I want to do is I want to put in a U-shaped balancer. With a U-shaped balancer in place, all we need to do is we need to take the recycled material that we already have, the copper scrap. We need to bring it into that balancer, and the only thing I want to do, is click on the balancer. The only thing I want to do is I want to prioritize in the copper scrap. As for the smelters themselves, we need to enable the copper scrap and the copper ore recipe. And in this case, I have copper scrap first, copper ore second. In this case, we're going to do the other way around. I'm going to have copper ore first, copper scrap second. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which recipe has the priority, because you're belt feeding the machine. So because this has copper scrap as the priority, as you can see, we're currently processing copper ore because I don't have any copper scrap. As for this one, this is going to have copper ore as the priority, but we're about to process copper scrap because that's what came in on the belts. Like, the machine has no choice. It's whatever gets fed in on the belt in whatever order. As nothing's changed at the front, it's just going to run down into these guys. It's going to run into our belts. It's going to run into our copper electrolysis machines. But we'd really like to swap over this acid recipe. As we can see, the pipe is full of water. So what I want to do is I want to cut the pipe, or realistically, if you are upgrading in site, you can just change your input from being water into acid, okay? And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that my input is now acid in that pipe, so that pipe is a mix of water and acid. These guys, all I need to do is I need to enable the acid recipe. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to enable that recipe. I am going to increase the priority on these guys, because should I ever end up in a situation where I'm short on acid, it's not being delivered, I don't want trucks to come charging over here to deliver water instead. I would prefer to find out I'm out of copper or out of acid by having a tank or something else and getting a notification, rather than having trucks trying to get into buildings that are probably built in and have no access and complaining they can't get in there to dump in water. But all I need to do is enable that recipe. As we can see, this pipe's full of water, this pipe's full of water, this pipe's full of acid, but as we use up the water, the acid's going to fill it. As this one uses up, well, this has got half water, half acid. There we go. As this water gets used up as well, come on, process faster. Oh, that one's got acid in it already. So this has acid and water. This one has water still. It's going to run once more. It now has water and acid, and it just means it's going to start using the acid recipe. Eventually it'll run short. Eventually it'll run into a situation where it has no acid in it, just once or twice, and it will swap over and use whatever water's still left in the pipes. But that is our upgrade. It's nice, it's simple. All we did was change over the pipe, and we also added in our balancer to bring in our recycled materials, and we're just making sure that we've turned on the recipe. That's all we have to do. Okay, from there, we now have recycling, so we have smelters that do recycling, and they have the better copper refinement recipe. Our next upgrade is not for a while. It's going to be advanced smelting. Advanced smelting is going to give us a new smelter type, being the Blast Furnace 2. It's also going to give us the Metal Caster 2. So what we want to do is we want to build the exact same build that we had previously, and plug it into the acid, like so. Cool, and that's the best thing. We just keep dragging that acid pipe all the way through. We're going to upgrade you, and we're going to upgrade you in place, in situ, and upgrade you. Okay, with those done, we're also going to bring in our recycled material. Also, I need to bring in a different material because we're no longer going to be smelting copper ore. We're going to be doing a slightly different recipe because the blast furnace 2, bit bigger cousin. It's like, you know, you and the one she says is just a friend. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Yeah. Okay. This one is going to have this recipe instead. It's going to be the copper ore crushed, plus sand and coal rather than just the copper ore. At the same time, it's going to output 48 molten copper, also more slag, also more coal. There's a number of upgrades in here. So we need to cut our existing copper belt by stop fitting copper into it. It's normally the quickest way to cut it, and all we need to do is we need to take the copper and run it through a process beforehand. That is going to be, we're going to run it through a bunch of crushers, one per smelter, just in case you were curious, and we're going to take that material, we're going to crush it first, and then we'll run it down and into our smelter block. Once it gets into our smelter block, like so, it'll process as normal. Can I prioritize in off that belt just for demonstration purposes? Because that's going to take a second to get here. The other thing you might notice, we have a new item that we need to bring in, which is going to be sand. So if we're going to come back to the back, we're going to come here. We're going to upgrade, raise the belt up to height number 2, and I'm going to run that right through the middle. Now, we intentionally left this gap in because, as you might notice, there's a new input at the back, which means I can plug that belt in there, and I can preemptively plug that belt in there. The only thing I need to do is I need to add my sand, which is going to be right here, and we can now get you up and running on the new recipes. Now, of course, you would run if I had coal. That would probably help. I forgot to bring the coal belt forward. Okay, let's bring the coal belt forward. And you will unprioritize. Great, so with the coal belt being brought forward, we are going to run into this machine, which will be on the new recipe, and it should just fire up. Now, the other thing we may notice is we have a Metal Caster 2, which now does 24 for 24, compared to the original one doing 12 and 12. It also means that this one's going to output 24, this one's going to output 24, which means we're going to have 24 on the belt at this point, and at this belt point we're going to have 48, which means our tier 1 belts moving 60 are perfectly fine. There we go. So you're up and running. You have the new recipe. You can run whilst ever we only have copper scrap in there, but as soon as I have the copper ore crushed, you're going to stop working. So I need to upgrade this smelter as well to match the previous smelter. We also probably need to just get in somewhere for the slag to go, just so I can keep demonstrating. All right, so you are definitely broken. Yep, because now you have copper ore crushed on the belt, so it means we can upgrade you and upgrade you and upgrade you. Okay, with all of those upgraded, both the smelters and the casters, we're now going to have far too much material because this is making 24 a piece coming in here. Unfortunately, copper electrolysis machine does not get an upgrade. It stays crappy forever. So what we need to do is we need to have 2 more machines to double our production of the refined copper out. So I want to take this machine and we're going to rotate it around and flip it so we end up basically with a mirror image of the machine. So I have the impure copper and the acid both lined up with their neighbors above. We're going to copy this one again. I'm going to flip it to get a mirror image. I'm going to drop that right there. But then I need to plug everything in. So to do that, we're going to take this flat conveyor and I'm going to bring it out 1 tile to run it into that pipe. After I've done that, I'm going to cancel that belt because I don't actually need that belt. I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm going to build that, and then I'm going to cancel that belt. All right, next thing we need to do is do the same thing with the pipes. So we're going to grab a pipe, and we're going to run it into the belt connector, and also grab a pipe, run it into the belt connector. Oh, after I've done that, I'm going to cancel you, and I'm going to cancel you. What it's done is, in both cases, it's given me a connector, which will now connect to both machines beautifully. Oh, I didn't set your recipes. That's what I didn't do. Okay, yeah, you need to have the new recipes enabled. All right, with that done, the only thing I need to do is I need to work out my output, which means I'm going to come from here into the center belt and from here into the center belt. With those 2 done, we're going to build that, and now we're going to have 24 impure copper, 48 impure copper, 24 impure copper, 48 impure copper. This belt down the middle is 48 impure copper, no, pure copper now. And once we get to this point, we have 96 pure copper, which means a belt that moves at 60 is not going to be fast enough. So we need to upgrade that one little belt, and like so, everything can run at full speed, and it's going to continue running at full speed without a problem. So that is our new and improved smelter to get us through the advanced smelting. But at the same time, we did unlock another technology right here. Technically, it's slightly before, but I generally build this afterwards because prior to this, you're not really making enough exhaust to really merit the need for an exhaust scrubber. I generally find that when I get to the blast furnace Mark II, it's more efficient. I'm using less copper ore. I tend to expand production and then worry about our exhaust, which is exactly what we're going to do. We are going to build the exact same build as we just built. And in fact, actually, we're going to plug in everything exactly the same. So can I put a slag box there? And we'll take our slag out. Cool. And we will bring in our copper. Plus, we're going to bring in our coal and our sand, like so, and that's going to be you up and running. Now, these guys, we want to upgrade them to now process the exhaust scrubbing. So the exhaust scrubbing right here means I can take some of the nasty exhaust, cut down on some of the air pollution, and get some useful material out of it. So to do that, first thing we need to do is we're going to need to remove both those. Also, with both those removed, this system's going to break pretty much instantly because the exhaust's got nowhere to go. We are going to build the whole rest of the system the exact same way. I'm going to remember to upgrade that, and nothing changes in here. What does change is we're going to have the addition of an exhaust scrubber. So the exhaust scrubber is one of a machine, takes in a bunch of exhaust, plus some water, and it's going to give us a couple of materials out. It's going to give us some sulfur, which is good because we were previously using a whole bunch of sulfur to turn into acid to run our copper electrolysis machines. We can now get some of that sulfur back. Also going to give us a bunch of exhaust, which we're going to have to vent because we don't have any other use for it at this stage. Also going to give a good portion of our water back as low pressure steam. The low pressure steam, I'm just going to run through a cooling tower and loop it back in, make sure it's priority fed back in, and you're done. As for our sulfur, generally I recommend you take it and you put it into your feed into your acid, because you process 180 exhaust. You guys make 36 exhaust if running at max capacity, which means for 5 of these, you can run one exhaust scrubber. One exhaust scrubber is going to give you 6 sulfur. 6 sulfur is going to be combined with 12 water to give you 24 acid, which will run exactly 1 smelter. So you end up in a situation where you can build 5 of these to get enough sulfur to run 1 of them, and the rest of the system is negative. So by dumping your exhaust in here and getting some, dumping your sulfur in here, it'll disappear very, very quickly, but it is offsetting some of the sulfur that you're getting from elsewhere. All right, with that out of the way, we need to obviously have those 2 acid machines, which are up and running just about instantly. They have water plugged in, they have acid, they're good to go. What we actually need to do is we need to plug in the exhaust. So exhaust wise, I'm going to go to transport. I'm going to pipe Mark II. I'm going to start on the outside, right at the end. I'm going to go up to height number 1. After I go to height number 1, I'm going to bring it right across the front of the machines. It's hard up against the front of the machines. And then I'm going to take that and drop that into the exhaust scrubber. The other thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to get a short pipe. Short pipe is going to come from the machine, or from the output. And because the pipe's at height 1, it's going to go to the side 1 time. And same over here. And with those 2 updates done, we are now going to have exhaust in the pipe. Yep, it's going to come over here. The only thing I need to do over here is I need to add in a way to get rid of the carbon dioxide. 2 choices are a large smokestack, one of these guys. It's going to do 600 carbon dioxide, or a little one, which will do 60. Unfortunately, you produce 72 if running at full speed, so you have 2 choices. You go either say, you and the guy she calls just a friend, not to worry. So we're going to use the little ones because I like the little ones, but you process 60 and you output 72. So I need to have 60 going to 72 going to 60. Yes, so I like doing this by putting in a pipe in here, and then a pipe onto there, and then taking my exhaust stack and putting it on the other side, and then cutting my exhausts, just those tiles, and putting them right there. It's just a little bit fancy. It gives you, you know, a him and a him attitude, and runs everything through a connector. Connectors, in case you didn't know, are basically throughput unlimited. They do about 1,000 items per minute, whereas a Mark III belt or pipe does 450. They're pretty amazing, but because we flow into a connector first, and then the two pipes, they can do 60 a piece. We only need to do 72, so we're perfectly fine. And that is our upgraded smelter. We are now covering ourselves for, where are we? Exhaust filtering. Okay, so it's exhaust filtering done. That's advanced smelting with Blast Furnace MK2. That is our upgrade to now include acid, also recycled materials, and that is back to our basic one, just doing off the basic belts. All right, from there we get one more upgrade, one more big upgrade to our belt system, and that is, well, all that. That is, we're going to step up to the next part of technology, which is super late game. We're also super far in this video, and that is the Arc Furnace MK2. So because we're super far in this video, I'm meant to remind you, have you found the video helpful? Have you learned something along the way? If you have, you know that like I asked whether I could borrow before, can I keep it? I'd like to keep it. We're about to go over how to upgrade everything in situ for an Arc Furnace 2, but I did promise you I'd remind you later on in the video. It's now later on in the video. At the same time, if you didn't click like then, maybe it's a good time to throw it in right now. Lastly, if you found the video helpful, you want to see more Captain tutorials like this, or even Let's Plays, by all means click the subscribe button. We've got a few more of these to come out. Anyway, with that out of the way, we want to upgrade you to an Arc Furnace MK2. Arc Furnace MK2 is going to be upgraded in situ. The only things we need to do is we need to bring in, obviously, our material we're going to smelt. Plus, I need to bring in the sand, and I also need to get rid of the slag. Okay, that's going to be the changes, because the Arc Furnace is slightly different. It is no longer going to use coal. It's going to use a different material. We want to turn on that recipe and that recipe. Yes, you might notice it no longer uses coal. It also has slightly different inputs and outputs, so we need to account for that. It's also very power hungry and is actually water cooled, so it's a slightly different build. So with that done, we might notice the old furnace. Old furnace is perfectly fine. It has its 3 belts, apart from coal, which we destroyed. Here, well, we only have 2 inputs. The third one is now blank, which was our sand belt. Plus, we need to get in this new item here, plus our water. So the new item is graphite. We're going to be burning graphite rather than coal, which means I'm actually going to remove this belt entirely, because we don't need coal anymore, and that's what was on that belt. Also means I'm going to remove its down belt and its down belt, because, well, coal obviously doesn't go in the machines anymore. We need to bring in graphite instead, which we're going to intentionally put in right where coal was. So we're going to run that belt right through there. And as for where the graphite plugs in, it is directly underneath where our slag zigzag is. So another reason I put in the slag zigzag, so we know exactly where you plug in, which means I can come to this side and I plug that in. You at height 1? You at height 1. I don't want you height 1, I want you ground level. Okay, we plug that in right there. Okay, so that's that change done. Next change we need to talk about is the sand. It's just going to move over time. There's nothing else you can do about it. There is no quick and fancy way to make sure this works perfectly every time. You're just going to have to just accept that you need to, you know, remove 2 input belts, one being the coal. Well, you just won't build it first. Well, you will build it. Yeah, we're just going to have to remove the coal belt and the sand belt to swap them over. Okay, and with that done, we can get all of that built. As we can see, I've already plugged this in the right spot, which means when I upgrade this, it'll just magically work. As for this one, we still need to handle the water in. So we need to bring in water into the back of the machine, which means I'm going to grab a pipe. I'm going to line it up directly into the same plane behind the machines. And I'm going to go up to height number 2 and then run it hard up against the back of the machines. And that's where I'm going to bring in water. Now, as for my water pipe itself, I'm just going to come out of the machine and go up and out 2 tiles. Because the pipe above is at 2 tiles high, we're going to go out 2 tiles. Same here, come up. I'm going to go out 2 tiles and plug that in there. Okay, with that done, I just need to get some clean water, which I've already brought in right here. Cool. Done. As for the other side, we may also notice that our water comes in and comes out of steam. So again, I'm going to grab a pipe and we're going to come up to height number 2. I'm going to run straight across the exhaust pipe right at the front. and then I need to take my steam and do something with it. In my case, we're just going to run it into a cooling tower and get rid of it that way. Last thing I need to do is I need to take my small pipe, plug it into the steam, and again, we're going to come out 2 tiles. So out 2 tiles away from the middle. It's always away from the middle. And you would be that tile there. I'm going to go out 1, 2 and plug that in there. I do need to take my exhaust and plug it into the previous exhaust system so it actually gets filtered. And with that done, we can get that part of the build up and running. So if I've plugged in everything correctly, we should have graphite confirmed. We should have water from here coming in. Yeah, we now have water coming in the machine. It should then process our molten copper out the front and also take our steam, dump our steam into our steam pipe, which will run across here, go through the cooled tower, get turned back into water, which I am priority feeding back in to the system to run around and around circles. At the same time, I should be able to upgrade you in situ and quick deliver. And I think the only thing is that pipe is around the wrong direction because you weren't there for me to plug into to start with. But if I upgrade you to the next level, you should become a Arc Furnace MK2. I have to set the recipes, but it should be a in situ upgrade without a problem. We don't have to change anything at the other end. Everything down here is exactly the same, including me forgetting to actually upgrade that to tier 2. Everything down here is exactly the same. Don't have to change anything. The only thing we have to change is we need to obviously move the sand belt over so it plugs in. We need to add the graphite belt and remove the coal belt. We need to add in the water cooling at the rear, add in the steam removal at the front, and that's about it. And with that done, we are now running on Arc Furnace MK2s. We've cut down our coal usage and also creating a whole bunch of low pressure steam, which I recommend you do not put in a cooling tower. I recommend there's many other things you do with the low pressure steam. Don't think about power, think about water. I'll actually link probably down or up the top right hand corner or down and down in the pin comment below. I'll link you a video about ways to get water. Think about that when it comes to that low pressure steam. But with that said, that is the end of the video. That is the end of the video. That is the end of everything. We've gone from our basic smelter, our very, very first baby basic smelter that got up and running, to a more advanced one, much more advanced one, that was at least fed by belts. Added some automation in there. Then we upgraded again to include recycled materials, also swapped over to acid, very, very important upgrade. After there, we went to a blast furnace MK2, which doubled our output, also doubled the amount of electrolyzers down here. And then we went and dealt with our exhaust as part of the system, also took our excess sulfur and plugged it back into the system, just to, you know, save us on some of the inputs and get some recycling out of the system. Also cut down on the air pollution. And then finally we took that big step and we upgraded to an Arc Furnace MK2, and we've now saved ourselves a whole bunch of coal. But that is the end of the video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. As always, don't forget, if you want to see some of the high resolution screenshots with the grid turned on, with the grid lines turned on, come join our Discord. You'll find them pinned in the Capital Industry channel. Links to Discord and all that sort of stuff are down in the description below, or pinned in the first comment in the comment section. But with all that said, I'm going to call this video here. Next video shall be on glass smelting. Glass smelting is going to be the next one. We might even do one on quartz, but I'm going to call it here. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Do hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the very next video. All right, bye.